because you're triple plus awesome. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is I will read, and it'll take me a while. I don't know how long it'll be, but and then if John wants to read something, and then the way often Tom would do at the ends of readings, come up with some piece for the end of the night. So I will not close. I will read, and then John, if you want to read something, and then Tom would close out the evening. Back in the day when it was actually at Recycled Reads. That seems like a fun way to end it. If that sounds cool with you, yay! I think that's a plan. Because that's how we get our poetic license. Nobody can see these forms, but I keep holding them up. Poetic license. Oh, there were two of them. What am I thinking? Here's another one. Poetic license. Ta-da! We all have to get our poetic license somehow, right? This first one that I'm reading is actually from the newly released 2023 Flash Fiction Datebook. The poetry one's going to be out soon, but the Flash Fiction one is out first. It's bricks. I find things places because CC&D used to run in Chicago. I'm walking in a Whole Foods, I believe, and I look down at the brick thing they have on the ground, and I'm like, it's the Chicago Brick Company. That's what these bricks say. So I did some weird effects with bricks, and these are going to be the theme that is going to be on these covers. And it is a calendar, the Flash Fiction that appears on the left-hand page and writing on the right. And I am going to pick something of mine that is in the middle of this. Not June, not soybean on my birthday, but in July, beginning of July, there's a Northern Ireland holiday on the 12th. During this calendar week, but I won't tell you about that. I won't tell you about this. Is just something that's on this page that I'm going to share with you, and it's titled The Robot Zombie Witch Girl Revisited. This is my curse. How many demons am I supposed to fight? How many barricades of progress am I supposed to either find a way around or physically break down with the palms of my hands? I know no one believes me and keeps shoveling the tasks for me to do into a heap in front of me and keeps on shoveling in mounds of loose rock and topsoil over my casket, waiting to bury me. But I'm like one of those zombies in those bad black and white B horror movies that doesn't seem to die and just keeps coming back. I'm one of those zombies lacking all color and having orbs for eyes with arms outstretched, letting you know that I'm very slowly, with my right foot draped in torn gauze, that I'm very slowly coming back, that somehow I'll make it back to haunt you. This is my curse. The problem is, with that bad right foot and all that gauze and that zombie walk I have to do when my legs are straight, I feel like I'm one of those buxom zombie witches with long straight black hair, and my feet thump on the ground and my one leg drags, and I'm in this long black dress and all that gauze from my foot is dragging behind me, and it's so unattractive, and I can never make a surprise entrance. I think that's the whole problem with being a zombie girl who dresses in black and keeps coming back. Unlike an angel, my wounds won't get better, and I'm walking around with bandages, and I leave a blood trail behind me, even when I try to clean up the mess I've made. It makes this undying zombie girl want to find religion so God can come along and save me from all this. I look for crosses in everything. I look for the meaning in everything, and I only get poetic, and I try to get poetic, and I just fumble with the masses, and I wonder if they all think like me, that nothing makes sense. So I can't seem to wax poetic, and I can't seem to get religious, and I'm just left here as lost as I was before, and I'm dressed in black, and I'm losing blood, and hell, I don't know what else. I just know that I look depressing and I keep coming back. So, don't be surprised. It's just me again. This is one-page thing that I scribbled on a notepad, which I just happen to have on this little... You can't see it. You could see it online if you cared, but it's just like, blah, the robot zombie, so it's this one-page thing I did. And what I was going to close with is two more Testament pieces. The next one's long. This is the one I had planned. These do not appear in a book yet. I do not know. And I said one of them will later, but this first one is a recent one that I hope you like, and it is titled Old Enough to Choose. Reading the headlines, I kept thinking, this can't be true. But this many headlines in sync cannot be wrong. That a Florida court rules teenager not mature enough to have abortion. This 16-year-old parentless girl working to get her GED also explained that her boyfriend cannot support anyone. Her guardian is fine with what she wants to do. So she researched this. She even sent handwritten requests for court approval, to which they said, no, she is not mature enough to have an abortion. Though apparently this parentless, unemployed 16-year-old is old enough to give up her future to birth and raise a child on her own with no money until she is more than twice her age. Usually the number one issue behind voting decisions is the economy. Struggling economic figures and rising prices for food and gas hurts Democrat candidates. So Republicans didn't believe that abortion rights for women or climate change would be an issue. But voters came out in droves, especially Gen Z. Although they did voice their concerns for the economy, there was a much more basic moral issue on the ballot. These Southern Christian Republican men give us more reason to vote for change once we see the effects of what the removing of these rights really means for anyone who is not an old, wealthy, white male. A man in a stuffy suit smoking his cigar might feel he has enough sway to decide what is best for women or the financially challenged, but his choices always hit hardest on minorities. And oddly enough, in the political world, women become the minority too. Maybe they closed their ears to our protests, thinking they were on a morally higher ground, a stance that supports clumps of cells inside of a woman but ignores them once they are born, which, come to think of it, is not very Christian. Rattling the metal bars they've locked us behind wasn't enough. And the last time I checked, stripping away rights was precisely what the U.S. government was supposed to stop. Preserving our rights was the key, and not taking a hatchet to our inalienable rights in the first place. Maybe voting is only a step until they realize their moral choices were actually more immoral, and they start to worry about lives that are actually living. How loud are we forced to roar to get your attention before you might listen to reason, reevaluate your premises, and start supporting the life, the living, breathing, intelligent, vibrant life that for far too long you've chosen to ignore? I have to interject and say right there, when I said stuffy old rich white men, I'm like, I hope that somebody like John F. McMullen's not angry at that, because you're not that man that I'm talking about when I make that statement. That man in the sun smoking his cigar, I can do what I want. And so I want to make that clear, that wasn't directed to anybody here when I made that statement. All right, so now I'm going to read one. I don't know how long this is. I didn't think I was going to read this one, but this is, I know it's going to be in the 30-year anniversary of CC&D, which is next June. So I probably won't read it then, but this is a long one that appears in this section as well, but it's a very different one, and it is titled, X is for Pope Innocent X, not women. Question not how this painter came under my purview, but why? Artemisia Gentileschi stood out among painters over the centuries, not only because she was a Baroque painter drowning in a sea of male painters, but because her first painting I saw was of Judith, from the deuterocanonical book of Judith in the Bible, Judith decapitating Holofernes. Now, although she may have painted expected biblical paintings at the time, she tried to show her women not as pristine and picture perfect, but more natural, more realistic, and most importantly, as strong women who fight. What she focused on in biblical painting was on attacks, rapes, now viewed from a woman's perspective. This was something never done before. And these were not easy times for women. They're still not. So when I looked through paintings over the centuries, Artemisia's strength stood out. Strength in women, in paintings, from a woman. In the Old Testament, Holofernes is the enemy of the Israelites. As the story goes, Judith may be his divinely appointed assassin, but the similarities are too shocking between Judith and Artemisia Gentileschi. For I only read later that because her father/painter, Orazio, was a close friend of the famous painter Caravaggio, that may have been the reason why Artemisia, so young, grasped such complex painting skills in the Baroque age, before Judith could save her people by twisting a knife into her assassin's neck. Artemisia's father hired the upcoming artist Agostino Tassi to give Artemisia lessons. Tassi later raped her, with accusations leading to a 7-year trial. This is where I read of her compelling and courageous testimony while oppression was still a part of the day-to-day life for all women. Quote, "I scratched his face and pulled his hair, and before he penetrated me again, I grasped his penis so tight that I even removed a part of the flesh," she said in court as they literally tortured her during her testimony. Sibylle was actually wrapping her fingers with ropes to pull tight to extract the truth during a trial. So she was tortured, while even in court transcripts she repeated while tortured, "It's true, it's true, it is true, it is true." And yes, she was tortured, but Tassi, the rapist, was not. I later read that after she was raped, at least one other man was there that didn't stop it, which reminds me that all her paintings of acts of sexual violence all contain at least one voyeur. Her father may have even known of this rape but said nothing, because after her virgin's raped at 17, the only way to keep her honor clean was if Tassi would marry her. Think of that. The only way back in the day she wouldn't feel defiled is if she married her rapist. Only after Tassi backed out on marrying her, the man who others claimed in testimony killed his first wife. Only when this wife-killing rapist Tassi backed out of marrying Artemisia, that is when her father filed rape charges against Tassi. But none of that even matters when in the wild art world of Caravaggio's Rome, artists were rich, arrogant, and could do almost anything they liked as long as they stayed in the Pope's good graces. For this is apparently the case for Tassi, an artist forgotten today, raided and then protected by Pope Innocent X. This explains why we believe Tassi received no real punishment, and Artemisia had to leave Rome to leave the scorn she then received. If her only schooling was in art, she deduced that this would be her tool to exact her revenge, depicting scenes from a woman's perspective, giving true insight and depth to the torture that women feel, perfectly depicted in her images. Even through Britain she was courted. Artemisia even became the first woman accepted into the prestigious Accademia delle Arti di Digno, which allowed her to, wait, listen to this one, I want this part to soak in. Her admittance allowed her to purchase her artistic supplies without her husband's permission and to sign her own contracts. How bold of men to give women that much power. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to remember. If we don't have rights now, then the U.S. government wants to take more basic rights away from women after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Well, back in the day, it was so much worse. It's funny. I try to act all highbrow, claim I know art, because this implies I'm quote-unquote important. But when I start to look into art, I see women fighting injustices to reveal how better suited for the world we women are, despite the gags around women while raped, despite the mentality of the rapist gender that women shouldn't control their lives. It's funny that I can look at something as simple as a few paintings from approaching half a millennia ago, how I can incorporate something as snotty as art and weave that emotional pain in art into the pain I see today. Only 1 in 3 women are raped in their only 1 in 3 women are raped in their lifetimes now. Isn't that funny how flippantly it slides off my tongue here? But only 1 in 3 may feel that pain, but more than that feel what select US states are imposing on women now in this millennium. I wonder how many more barricades women must hurdle to prove that we know what's best for our bodies. Now men want to take more basic reproductive rights away from women. Many men even regard women's health before they plant their... Many men never regard women's health before they plant their seed. Now that trigger laws show proof that men care for the unborn embryo more than the living, breathing woman. Once they can think they can inseminate, and then their job is done. You men created this mess. Don't expect women to care for your mistakes for decades. I can't tell you how many years that, when together, women have controlled men's finances. So I think it's about time men realize that we have the right to control ourselves, too. That was a long one. Okay, thank you, and I'm getting applause from people from the other side of the planet. Thank you very much. I'm surprised that I read that one. Thank you. It's a long one. Yeah, and you find these things about art, and I should wave to more people that are watching the live thing. Hi, you're just hearing things about art and abortion rights, and this is toward the end of the Poetic License Open Mic.